Hello classes and welcome to topic 1, your first topic lesson for this week. We are continuing, of course, learning all about South America, and this lesson in particular is about the rivers and mountains of South America. You can see your learning objective at the bottom of the screen, which is I can name and locate rivers and significant mountainous regions. Okay, so a quick question for you. Are rivers and mountains an aspect of human geography or of physical geography? What do you think? Well done if you were able to identify that they are, of course, an aspect of physical geography. You should have learnt that from your lessons in week 3, where we looked at the human and physical geographical elements of certain places in South America. Physical geography, of course, is things that aren't man-made. So we're not talking about buildings and landmarks and cities and roads and things like that. Instead, what we're talking about are things like mountains, rivers, lakes, the oceans, canyons, those sorts of things. Okay, so let's start and break this lesson into two. Firstly, we're going to just focus on the rivers. Okay, so two questions for you. Now, you can, if you're working with someone at home, this would be a great opportunity for you to pause the video and try and answer these questions. If you're on your own, this would be a good chance for you to pause the video and have a think about these questions before we move on. Okay then, so what is a river and how is a river different from a lake, a pond, a canal or an ocean? So here is a definition then of a river. A river is a flowing body of water, so it's not still. We might have something like a pond or a lake, which could be either man-made or naturally existed, but it's not flowing, it's not moving the water towards another place. A river is also usually fresh water. By that, I mean it's not salt water like the water you would find in the sea or in an ocean. And most importantly, is that a river flows into a sea or an ocean, or it flows into another river, which then in turn flows into a sea or a river. So the important thing we need to know about the water in rivers is that when we see them moving, they are moving on a journey, and this journey could be many hundreds of kilometers, a journey towards a sea or an ocean. In that sense, of course, they are different from lakes or ponds, which are still, canals, which do flow but are man-made, or oceans, which are saltwater bodies of water, much larger. So that is our definition of a river. Again, time for you to stop here and have a look at these two questions. Firstly, how many rivers can you name? That's up to you. Maybe you can only name one, but I'm sure we can all name at least one from our London topic earlier this year. And secondly, a bit of a thinking outside the box question for you. Why are so many towns and cities built around rivers? So the opportunity for you to pause the video now. Okay, welcome back. Let's start then with how many rivers you can name. Now, unfortunately, I can't name you all of the rivers in the world. That would take far too long for this video. But what I can say is we might be able to name some famous rivers, such as the River Thames, the River Amazon, which we've looked at previously in this topic. Or you might have even thought of some local rivers, the River Shuttle, which runs through Bexley, or the River Cray, which runs through Crayford. There are endless amounts of rivers which you could have named. Why then are so many towns and cities built around rivers? Well, here is the reason why. Well, four of the reasons why. One of them is that the land around rivers is very fertile. By that I mean it's very good for growing crops. Some ground, of course, like the ground in deserts or the ground in rocky mountainous areas, is not good for farming. But this sort of ground around rivers is good for farming. It has all the nutrients and water that the plants need to grow. Another reason, of course, is that rivers provide fresh, drinkable water. Now, I, of course, don't recommend that you go outside and drink out of your local river, but when the options were that or nothing to people in ancient times, or that or seawater, which is very salty and make you very sick, river water, by comparison, is an absolutely great source of drinking water. Rivers also provide very fast transport to other parts of the country. For example, you could travel many tens of kilometres on the River Thames and go through many counties, including, of course, Middlesex and Sussex and Surrey as well, where the River Thames flows through. Lastly, is that because rivers flow into oceans and into the sea, it provides links to the rest of the world for trade. So if you lived on the River Thames, you could have lots of farmland and you could grow things, or you could, you could have sheep around there, which you could raise for their wool and things like that. And then you could be able to transport that all around the world on ships. And that is why when cities and towns started to be built over the last 1,000 years, that is why rivers were such an important aspect of physical geography to people in those times. Here is a top 10 list of the longest rivers in the world. Now, the first column tells you it tells you number one is the longest, number two the second longest, and so on. And then the next one tells you the name of the river. What I want now, the name of the river is in many different languages there. So sometimes we will refer to a river in only in English, and sometimes we might refer to a river in the name that the people of that country call it. So this can get a little bit confusing when we're looking at maps. We have to realize that sometimes the English name for something is different than, say, the Brazilian name for something, or the Chinese name for something, or the Indian name for something. So we just have to be aware of that when we're reading maps. The longest river in the world, as you can see, is the River Nile, which flows through lots of countries in Africa. Now, when you go on to study Africa next year, as part of your history and geography in year 6, you'll learn all about the River Nile. For now, we're going to focus on number 2, which is the Amazon, surprise, surprise, and number 8, which is the Rio Grande, which you can see there are some other names for it there, one in Spanish and one in Portuguese as well. But for our purposes, we're going to refer to it as the Rio Grande. The column on the right tells you what countries that river flows through. So, for example, I can see the Amazon flows through Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Guyana. Later on in your independent task, this is going to be a really useful slide for you to refer to. So I'd suggest this is one that you have open when you are doing that task. So that was a brief introduction to rivers. Now we're going to move on to look at mountains. So 3 questions for you to consider either on your own, or if you are working with someone at home, you could stop the video now and have a discussion about these. So what is a mountain? How are they formed? And how is it different from a hill? So you can pause the video now. Okay, welcome back. Let's have a look at the answers to some of these questions then. So, firstly, a mountain is a large elevated area of land with a small peak. Now, when we see mountains drawn in cartoons, we might have an idea of what a mountain looks like, a big triangle with a big snowy point at the top. That is actually quite useful for us to remember how a mountain is different from, say, a plateau or a platform or a hill. One of the important aspects is it has this narrow peak. Now, cities don't generally, and towns don't generally exist at the very tops of mountains. Number one, because they're very high, very cold. But number two, because they are very steep, because they have this peak at the top. So that's a really helpful place for us to start. Secondly is how are they formed? Now, We know from our year 3 science and geography, and when we learned about volcanoes when we were younger, we might have learned all about the tectonic plates, or the plates that make up the Earth. The Earth's land is not one big mass, it is in fact lots of big plates. These plates could be the size of a country or even the size of a continent. And these plates also connect all of the Earth, and the seas and oceans sit on top of them, and the bits that jut out of the seas and oceans are our islands and our countries and our continents. So we don't have to worry too much about the specifics of this, but we might be interested to know that when these tectonic plates they exist, they move around. They're not completely still. Now, they are relatively still now compared to what they were like when the Earth was very, very young. But they do still move and shift about, and this can cause things like earthquakes. Now, we in the UK and in most of mainland Europe are very lucky because we live right in the middle of one of these plates. The plates, it's where they meet when natural disasters like earthquakes and some kinds of volcanic eruption can happen. Now, back when the Earth was very young, these plates used to move around a lot more before they settled into what they are now. And when two of those plates come together, it creates an earthquake, and the two plates push up against each other. If you get two pieces of paper on a table in front of you and you push them together, you'll see either one goes on top of the other or they both push each other upwards. And when they both push each other upwards, that is how a mountainous range or a range of mountains is formed. So mountains often exist along the lines between two of the Earth's plates. How is, you wonder, I'm sure, a mountain different from a hill? Well, you can pause the video here and have a little look at this. Oh, my apologies, skipped past. You could have a look here at the difference between a hill and a mountain. I'm not going to talk through all of them. There's also a link for you to have a look at there, which provides lots of information if you'd like to do some more research um, about mountains and how they're different from hills and plateaus and those sorts of things. Uh, We might refer over the course of our geography lessons to individual mountains, or we might refer to mountain ranges. A mountain range is a series of mountains. Now, this is where the two plates that we were just talking about in the previous slide would have pushed together and they would have caused lots of mountains to form. So we have lots of individual mountains, usually along a row or along a line, and these make what we call a mountain range. So you may have heard of some of the world's most famous mountains. You might have heard of Mount Everest, which is in Asia. You might have heard of Kilimanjaro, or you might have heard of Ben Nevis, which is the tallest mountain in the UK, which is in Scotland. When we have individually named mountains like this, we often have them written as Mount something, or something mountain, or sometimes MT dot, which is short for Mount, and then Everest, for example, Mount Everest. This is different though. These are different from mountain ranges. These are individual mountains. I wonder if you have ever heard of any mountain ranges. If you're working with someone, again, this might be an opportunity for you to pause and discuss if you've ever heard of any mountain ranges. Okay, welcome back. Here is a list of mountain ranges. It is the 6 longest mountain ranges in the world. Now, you can see right at the very top there is the Andes. The Andes is a mountain range in South America. You can see the countries which the Andes passes through: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. And also on the right there, you can see the highest point of the Andes is Mount Aconcagua. Let me just check I pronounced that correctly. Aconcagua. Thank you. Aconcagua. So that is the tallest mountain in the Andes in South America. There are some other mountain ranges that you might have heard of there. Notably, in number 6 is the Himalayas, where Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world. You might have heard of the Rocky Mountains, which goes through Canada and the US as well. But there are some other of the great mountain ranges of the world on that table for you to have a look at if you would like. So we're going to have a look at your task now, your independent task. So you'll want to move over to the Google Doc. Your very first task is just to come up with some definitions in your own words. This is going to help me and Miss Lobo understand that you know what a river and a mountain is. Of course, go back to the slides or do some Googling or research of your own, but please do not copy and paste directly. We want to see these in your own words. Your second task is just about South America. So we are going to have a look at 2 rivers which flow through South America, and then which countries they flow through. So I will put the names of 2 rivers into that table, and you will tell me which countries they flow through. Now, you can either do that by looking at a map, you could do that by going onto Digimaps, or you could have a go at just Googling that if you're not able to do that. For example, if you're working on a smartphone, that is absolutely fine. And then a question underneath that: what is the name of the main mountain range in South America? And tell me one interesting fact about it. So that interesting fact can be something that you research yourself, or it could, of course, be something that I've spoken about in the video. That's absolutely fine. Now, your final task, you will see, has been split into 3 sections. You only need to do one of these sections. I've had to break it up, and I will explain the reasons why now. The first option is the one I would like you to do if you can. This is the best option. It involves going onto Digimaps. You can click the link for Digimaps here on the document and use the login details from the instructions of this assignment. What I would like you to do, if you are able to do that, is go onto Digimaps and locate the 5 things you can see there: the Amazon River, the Rio Grande, the Madeira River, the Andes Mountain Range, and Mount Aconcagua. And then you are going to put a comment box, just like you did with your last Digimaps assignment, and just label it. Just label it Rio Grande or Madeira River. Once you've done all 5 of those, then you take a screenshot of your completed map so I can see the comments and where they are linking to, and then you post it underneath the doc. If you do the green one, the top one, which I would say would be my preference for most of you to do, then you can just delete the orange one and the red one. If you're not able to use Digimaps at home, that's absolutely fine. Do not worry about it. What you can do is you can move on to option 2, the orange task. The orange task is an equally good option, but it just might take you a little bit of time. What I would like you to do is print or draw a map of South America and label those 5 points on it: the Amazon River, the Rio Grande, the Madeira, the Andes Mountain Range, and Mount Aconcagua. If, of course, you have access to a printer, you might want to print a sort of blank template. You can just Google and then print one out. You'll label them using pen and pencil, take a photograph and upload it to this doc, or upload it as a separate attachment via PDF, which I know some of you have done. So those are the 2 best options. Now, there are a few of us, and this is absolutely fine, who are not going to be able to do those because you've been having trouble with the uploading and downloading of pictures and Digimaps and all those sorts of things. What you are going to do, if that is the case for you, is you're going to move on to option 3, which is my least preference. But if you have to do this, if this is your only option, that is absolutely fine. You can still achieve your LO. What I want you to do is go onto Google and find one river map of South America and one mountain map of South America. So you'll have 2 maps underneath this task. Then what you need to do is fill in the table underneath. So you need to tell me the compass points, thinking about an 8-point compass. So north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, west, or northwest. You need to tell me where roughly that that piece of physical geography is in South America. So you find 2 maps from Google, you copy and paste them into the document, one which shows the rivers and one which shows the mountains by Googling something like, for example, mountain map of South America or river map of South America. You paste those into this document, and then in the table beneath, you tell me the compass point for that geographical feature. So there are three options for you to choose from. Best one is the green one, but if you can't do that, the orange one is also good. And if you can't do that, the red one is absolutely fine. Hope you enjoy this task, and over to you.